Hi, I'm Daryl Smith, the chair of the Organizational Leadership Department at the College of Mount St. Joseph. Welcome to the first installment of our new series called The Book on Leadership. And the goal of this series is to share different leadership principles that we discover through popular reading that we do. The topic for today is a book called Undaunted Courage. It was written by Stephen Ambrose, a noted historian who passed away just a couple of years ago. Ambrose is probably best known for his work on D-Day and the book and movie called Band of Brothers. Ambrose wrote a book about Meriwether Lewis and William Clark and their travels from 1804 to 1806, opening up the American West. His book came out in the late 1990s and for the most part chronicles Meriwether Lewis's life. Lewis actually started his journey in the fall of 1803, floating down the Ohio River from Pittsburgh, stopping in Cincinnati and taking a detour down to Big Bone Lick, where Thomas Jefferson had told him to examine the bones of a woolly mammoth that had recently been discovered. The formal part of their journey started in the spring of 1804, when the explorers left St. Louis and headed up the Missouri River. Thomas Jefferson had been very clear that he wanted them to explore the Missouri River and hopefully find the Great Northwest Passage. They spent the winter of 1804-1805 in the Mandan Indian Village in south-central North Dakota. While there, they talked with both the Mandans and a tribe known as the Hidatsu Indians. And the Hidatsu had some direction for the traveling party of what to expect upriver. That part of the river had yet to be mapped by anyone. They told Lewis and Clark very clearly that they would come across 4 tributaries of the Missouri River. Then they would come upon the Great Falls of the Missouri. Following the Great Falls of the Missouri, they would pass another river and then reach what's known as the Three Forks. The Three Forks are the beginning of the Missouri River. They were then to follow the North Fork to reach the mountains and the Continental Divide, and from there they were to be able to see the Columbia River and make their way down to the Pacific Ocean. The captains set off in March of 1805 and began to head upriver with the men. Just as the Indians told them, they passed one tributary, then a second river, a third river, and then a fourth. The captains' expectations grew as they thought soon they would see the Great Falls of the Missouri. However, surprisingly, one night, as they began paddling and stopping to camp for the night, they reached a fork in the Great Missouri River. It was the evening of June 2nd, 1805. Perplexed, they camped for the night at the fork. The next morning, Meriwether Lewis, in his diary, recorded the following statement: "Which of these rivers was the Missouri?" It was a very important question to answer for 2 reasons. First, Thomas Jefferson had told them clearly to follow the Missouri River, and secondly, their time was short and it was important to reach the Pacific Ocean before winter. So it was critical that they make the correct decision on which of these forks was the correct way to follow the Missouri River. They were also perplexed as to why the Indians had not mentioned this 5th river. So the captains spent the next week trying to figure out which to take, the right fork or the left fork. The problem was each fork had some characteristics of the Missouri River they'd been traveling. One was deeper, one was wider, one was swifter, one had the color of the Missouri they were used to. So they were quite perplexed, and they had each of their voyagers go up each fork of the river trying to discover which was the true fork. After a week, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark decided that the South Fork or the left fork must be the true tributary or the true Missouri River. The only problem was that their men, and there was 20 of them all together, thought for sure that it was the North Fork. I pick up with Ambrose where he says, on June 9th, Lewis attempted to convince the men of the expedition that the South Fork was the Missouri, without success. To a man, they were, quote, firm in the belief that the North Fork was the Missouri and that which we ought to take. Private Cruzak, who had been an old Missouri navigator and from his integrity, knowledge, and skill as a waterman, had acquired the confidence of every individual of the party, declared it as his opinion that the North Fork was the true, genuine Missouri, and could be no other. End of quote. Despite Cruzet's certainty, the captains would not change their minds, and so informed the men. In a magnificent tribute to the captain's leadership qualities, they said, and I quote, very cheerfully that they were ready to follow us anywhere we thought proper to direct, but they still thought that the other was the river. The leadership lesson I want to draw from Ambrose's work today is the fact that Meriwether Lewis and William Clark were outvoted by their men over 20-2. The men were convinced that the North Fork was the correct river, and yet the men trusted the captains because they had been with them for 14 months, and even though they thought the captains were wrong, they were still willing to follow them. And that's, I think, the lesson for us as leaders. As we work with our people over time, we build trust with them, and so when those tough decisions arise, and there may be disagreement as to what the correct decision should be, our followers go along with us if we have built that trust. It turns out that Meriwether Lewis and William Clark did choose the correct fork, and they were on the Missouri River, despite their men's druthers otherwise. But why there was a fifth river instead of four, you'll have to read the book to find out, or come see me privately. I hope you've enjoyed this first installment of the book on leadership. Lead well.